So I'll start to speak about rank distribution. So I refer to score as a function of rank. So for example, regarding word frequency in a text, score would be the number of times a given word appears on a text or whatsoever. Earthquake size, so say some given scale of earthquake would be the score in this case, and then how the score behaves as a function of rank. So the one with the most frequent word would be the rank 1 word, the second most frequent word would be the second ranked, and so on. And we can in principle apply the analysis that I'll be showing here also to athlete score, city size, and so on. So for a long time, the analysis of rank distribution have been done at a snapshot of time, and we can see various behaviors. Quite famously, Zipslon analyzed word in a text and found that we had a power law. Also, very common behaviors are gamma and beta functions, and also double power laws, and I am pretty sure that there are many other distributions of rank. However, we would like to study, or in this work we focused on studying the behavior of rank in time. So actually, a typical behavior of ranking time would be the one that we show here. So here on the x-axis we have time from 1964 to 2008, and on the y-axis we have rank here from 1 to 101. So just to tell you what's this, this is essentially the economical complexity of several countries. It's 101 countries, it's the data available over time. And we can see several features here. First of all, it's a mess. You can see that it's a mess. It, in principle, would seem very difficult to try to understand this figure. It might be difficult to characterize, but there are also some interesting features. For example, the countries with the highest rank or the lowest rank, as you want to call it, with rank say 1 or 2 or 3 until 10, are usually constant over time, which means that more or less that rich countries have remained rich over time, and well, but poor countries or these ones remain to vary a little bit. So this is data obtained from the Atlas of Economical Complexity. You can find it here. It has lots of very interesting data regarding the various aspects of economics of different countries in the world. So what we did was to use the Google language database. So I guess some people here know it. It's a vast amount of data, a moderate amount of data, several hundreds of gigas here. And what they did was to scan books from 1500 till the date and to see what words appear in them. They have scanned books in English, French, German, Italian, Russian, Spanish, which is the language that we've analyzed, but also in Hebrew, in Chinese, and in several other languages, which we didn't include in our study due to technical reasons, from 1500 almost to the date, essentially to 2008 or 2012 in some cases. And it includes 1 gram, so groups of 1 word, of 2 words, 3 words, until 5 words. We essentially focused on studying on 1 grams. There were more than 6 times 10 to 11 words there, so we have a big amount, fair amount of data to analyze. It includes around 4%, or they claim that it includes around 4% of all books written until 2008. So it's really a lot of data. They're publicly available. Here you can find them. So this is the data that we've analyzed. So let us look at some aspects of this data. They're interesting by themselves. So in 1700, the most used word in English was the, then of, and, to, in. In 2000, it was exactly the same words, and across languages, so you have English, German, French, Italian, Spanish, and Russian. The German word, or the word in the original language, together with one translation. This translation was done with Google Translate, the first key of Google Translate, and that allowed us to compare different languages. So we found that words that provide the main structure remain largely unchanged within time and across languages. However, there are also some interesting things that we can learn not from looking at the most used words, but say at the most used nouns. So I find quite amusing that the Second most used noun in German in the book scanning 1700 was Gottesfurcht, fear of God. Funny, okay? God in Spanish, Señor, Cardenal, Rey. Yeah, it tells some things about 1700. Whereas in 2000 we have, I don't know, time, work, state, and say more modern words, or words that somehow reflect what's important for us now. So we can take a look at the overlap of words across languages. So we can look at, say, the translation of the 20 most used words in French and compare them with the 20 most used words in English. And we find is that there is a high overlap between French and English, between German and English, and all the words here, maybe except for Russian. There is a dip here due to some change in the alphabet that was done here around these years. And this is for all words. We can, instead of looking at all those words, we can take a look at something called, say, structural words, which are these dashed lines, and we can observe that the overlap is quite small. So let me, with this little bit of background and this piece of information, which I think is sort of interesting, introduce the most central or the central concept that I want to speak about, which is rank diversity. So rank diversity is a tool that allows us to characterize the spaghettis. I hope you understand this slide. So rank diversity T, moving on to T, is the number of different elements that have a given rank K over the time examined, normalized with respect to the number of ranks considered. Never mind this last sentence is just simply for the sake of having a maximum diversity of 1. So, as a first example, the most frequently used word in English is the, and it was always the same. So, in rank 1, we have only one word, which is the. That means that the diversity of 1 would be equal to 1. There was only one word divided by delta t, which was the number of times dots considered, which in our case was 208. Okay, so that's one example of rank diversity. The other example would be, well, as in the previous case, the case of the spaghetti-like plots. You consider a given rank, I don't know which number is this, say 50, and you look how many different colors do you have inside this line. How many balls, different balls you have in this line, okay? So I don't know, it should be 20 or whatever, which would mean that the diversity for this particular rank would be 20 over, I think it was, I don't know, 50 years or something like that. So with this tool, we can take a look at what happens with diversity in languages, okay? And this is exactly what happens, okay? This is for English, German, Russian, Italian, French, and Spanish. So first of all, well, I must say something. We consider data from 1800 on, so that we could have good statistics across languages. So that statistics were what we consider good. And before, I don't remember what we picked up this particular number. It doesn't matter now. We have also windowed the results a little bit over time. Otherwise, we would have more scattered plots. So this is a little bit more clear. We observe that low ranks, here on the x-axis we have k, or to be more precise, log 10 of k, which is the rank, and here on this axis we have diversity. For low ranks, we have low diversity, and for larger ranks, we have larger diversity, which in some sense is sort of intuitive. The same idea as with the economies. Rich people remain rich, most frequent words don't change too much over time. And let's say more unfrequent words change a lot the rank over time, which I think is interesting, and we found surprising was the fact that all these curves were pretty similar from different languages to other languages. Okay, and we wanted to study a little bit this. So first of all, let me speak about this dashed curve. To speak about this dashed curve, we made an ansatz which simply. This curve here looks like the cumulative of a function, and the simplest answer would be a Gaussian, cumulative of one single tick function. So this Dashed lines is this side, okay, which has these forms. And what's interesting is that if we choose the Gaussian, this allows us to define 3 different regions in languages, which would be the head of a language, the body of a language, and the tail of a language, regarding with respect to if it's on the right hand side of the Gaussian, or on the left, or on the middle. Okay? So if we superimpose the different languages, and we put here these answers, we observe this figure. And well, we can see that actually it's a quite impressive agreement. This does not have to be monotonous. And well, they are essentially
microphone.
They look very similar from one language to the other. Other interesting aspect that I have to mention is that we could also observe that what we call the body of the language is what linguistics also consider as the body of language. So it's the basic number of words that you need to communicate with other people. Let's say not to have a deep conversation, but to go into a bar and to speak about, say, maybe not philosophy, but maybe about football or whatever, then you only need until here. And up to now, I think that no other mathematical model has been able to put a number to these other mathematical models which attempt to give the size of the body, say that body in, say, French and in German varies 1.5, almost 2 orders of magnitude, which is totally false according to linguistics. So let me speak now very quickly about a model that we developed. To sort of show where the models come from, let me show you the behavior of rank with time for words belonging to the head, to the body, and to the tail. And well, this is, say, the rank of the word off with time, so it behaves essentially constant, whereas for the word net here, it varies quite a lot, and its variations are of the order of thousands. And then at some point, there is a drop here, which means that the word net was used a lot more, and it sort of tends to stabilize here. Okay? So the thing that this shows us is that the jumpsuit, so if you look at this figure without these values here, this figure and this figure look quite similar. And even this figure, if you forget a little bit about this quantization, because words cannot have rank 1.5, but only integer rank, they also look similar here. So there is a scale invariance of the behavior of rank with time. Moreover, we looked at the derivative of this, or at the relative change of the rank with time, and we did a density plot of this, and it precisely confirms what I was trying to say, that there is a scale invariant behavior. So the jumps divided by k of t look all very similar. The red curve here is a Gaussian, which has nothing to do with the Gaussian that I spoke a little bit earlier. The green curve here is a Lorentzian. We decided to use a Gaussian model because the Lorentzian brought up some features that we didn't want. I can tell you the details later, but I'm running short on time, so let me go through it. And well, this essentially suggests, one more piece of information. There are no correlations, essentially, or the correlations have a very short time. And so this is the model that we came up with. So we have the rank at time t, and to this we will add a Gaussian number, and the width of this jump, which is this term here, is proportional to the current rank. So this is sort of a scale invariant Gaussian random walker. And then with this we do a sort of unfolding, and this model is depicted here in the slide. So here we have k at time t, and then we're going to add a random number, which is proportional, or whose width is proportional to the rank, so that you see here that the jumps are very small, and here the jumps are quite big, and then we normalize, and then we obtain the ranks at a later time. So indeed, smaller ranks have smaller mobility, larger ranks have larger mobility, and yeah, the behavior or the system is still invariant. So here on the right-hand side, we show essentially the same picture as this one here for one realization of the model, and well, I feel that the behavior is similar on this real language, on English, and on distant synthetic language, which we build on the computer. Of course, it's one realization. If you take a look at other languages, it looks very similar to this one. Of course, not exactly, because different languages are different. So we are on the right track. Then we go back to this plot here, and the diversity of our synthetic language is the green curve here, which actually behaves very similar to the other languages. And well, of course, one could ask oneself what happens to other systems. Well, this is what happens. If we would take a look at countries, or the economic complexity of countries, or the money that different companies have according to Fortune 500, or the ranking of tennis players, chess players, words. Actually, we also have some funny piece of data, which are the phone calls in Senegal. I don't know why we have the data, but we have it. You can also take a look at, for example, poker players. We have focused a little bit on ranking within games and sports, and they all have very similar features. So we think that this is kind of universal, okay? It's not universal. Interestingly, we have found that there is other kind of behavior, which is dropped down here. If you do not plot it in a log scale, but rather in a linear scale, it gives a parabola here, okay? But it seems that there are only these two types of behaviors. So essentially, I think we have come up with an interesting way of measuring, in some sense, the complexity of individual trajectories of rank evolution. Several languages display common behavior. We propose a model which can take account of them, and other complex systems show similar features. Okay, thank you very much.